It's 2020, and whether it's COVID-19, murder hornets, or just a general disdain for other humans, most of us aren't going outside much. If we do, it's only if it's absolutely necessary. So what are we supposed to do since it's an election year? And a pretty dang big one, too. Well, obviously, you could just go down to your local polling place and have like 100 other people around you, catch COVID, and go home. Be like, I did it, yay! Ew. Or just vote by mail. Hello, and welcome to What the What, the show about fun facts and a little bit of science, and whatever this category it is. Awesome. Today we're going to talk about voting by mail and the challenges that may come up with doing so, but first, let's talk about voting at your location. Now, it's very important to know that a total of 36 states have laws requesting or requiring voters to show some form of identification at the polls, 35 of which are in force in 2020. North Carolina's law has a temporary injunction on it as of December 31st, 2019. The remaining 14 states use other methods to verify the identity of voters. Most frequently, other identifying information provided at the polling place, such as a signature, is checked against information on file. Check down in the show notes to see a link to understand a little bit more about each state and what you need to expect as far as identification. We're going to assume that you've already registered to vote and that you do have your voter's registration card. That card will actually tell you where you're supposed to go to vote based on your address. You can also find out where you're supposed to vote by just searching online. If you've lost your card, or because it's 2020 and like literally everything changes, it's very important that you validate the location that you need to vote at this year. And you want to do so by checking your state's official election website. Quick search on Google and look for that .gov URL and you're good to go. Boom, you did it. I'm so proud of you. Wink. Now, voting in person may seem like the easiest way to do things because you just have to show up and you're off to make the most important decision of 2020, if not your lifetime. I mean, let's face it. Vote. Now, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, voting in person might make the most sense. It's as easy as just showing up. But we have to face the facts. It's 2020, and we have a pandemic. Wearing a mask, we'll say, just isn't for everybody. And you probably don't want to be in line with them breathing all over you. Safety is important, and it's not just about yourself. It's about everybody around you. Please wear a mask. So, anyway, going to your local polling place means you're probably going to be surrounded by a lot of people, and that might be a really bad, awful thing. Take the pandemic out of the equation, you still may be standing in line for several hours. And if you don't like people, that's an awful place to be. If you have less polling places this year, like we've seen in the primaries, then you're definitely going to be standing in line for a really long time. If this happens, please be aware of local voting laws. If you're in line before the polling place closes, you are legally allowed to vote. They cannot shut it down. And we saw this happen during the primary, so pay attention. This all sounds like a nightmare. So what can you do when there's a bunch of people, there's masks, there's long lines, there's people potentially trying to shut the thing down? What can you do? Mail in, baby! Otherwise known as absentee ballot. Now, you may have heard of things like voter fraud, but keep in mind that in order to accomplish voting by mail and then voting in person, or doubling up in mail and trying to commit this fraud, it's not worth the risk. And it's hard to do. Someone that commits voter fraud could face up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Jim Bob down the street's not going to be doing this because maybe can't afford it or doesn't want to spend 10 years of their life in prison over some one additional vote. It's not going to make a difference. Between 2000 and 2012, there were literally billions of votes that were counted. And out of those billions, 491 cases of mail-in fraud. That's it. 491 sounds like a lot, but it's never going to make the difference on somebody winning an election. If someone was to steal your mail-in ballot and fill it out and then vote for the person you didn't want, and they figure that out somehow, and then mail it back in for you, that's one vote. They committed one thing. They might go to prison for 10 years and spend 10 grand. That's stupid. Compare this to the electronic machines and how one person can hack that in person and change thousands of votes. And this can certainly happen. See the show notes below for a couple links on several different outlets that have covered the story, and there are tons of stories out there on this topic. Voting by mail has been happening since, wait for it, the 1860s. That's right. That's right. Congratulations. You guessed it. What? Yeah. During the Civil War, they wanted soldiers to be able to vote despite the Civil War. This is something that has been in effect ever since, and something that our soldiers can use today, even when they are overseas. So it's good enough for our military when they're overseas in another country, but somehow it's not good enough for civilians on U.S. soil? That sounds like a load of baloney. Currently, there are 5 states that do automatic mail-in ballots. Colorado, for the other ones, Colorado, Washington, Hawaii, and Utah. That's 4. Colorado, Washington, Hawaii, Oregon, and Utah. Automatic. They send ballots and applications to every eligible citizen in that state. That will absolutely increase voting compared to in-person voting. How do I know that? Well, because it's already been done. All of those states have an almost 10% average poopy butt. All of those states average a nearly 10% higher turnout. Look at Nebraska. In 2018, one county ran the entire election by mail, with a staggering 58% of the eligible population submitting their ballots. Rest of Nebraska, 24%. Ew. Again, it's 2020 and everything's crazy and changing all the time, and some states are implementing this mail-in ballot option, which is great, but not all of them. So again, it's very, very important that you check with your local website what is happening in your state and what your options are. If you go with the mail-in option, please consider these items. What's the process to request it? How long does it take? How long do I have? Some states match a signature with what they have on file, which if you've been in that state your whole life, we don't know. That could be any signature over your time. Driver's license, documents, how old is that signature? Did you sign all the areas that needed to be signed? I mean, we've seen some states have issues where people didn't sign the second box. So there's probably 2. So consider that. I probably have 2 places to sign. Is there somewhere to initial? Double check everything. Are you going to just drop it off in the mailbox? Or are you going to do the proper thing and hand deliver it yourself to an official drop box or polling site? Which, can feel a little stressful, especially if you put it in the mail. Where is it going to be at any point? You don't know. But maybe you do. Most systems are set up so you can track it just like an Amazon package. You know when it's on its way to you, when it's arrived, and when it's on its way back, and if it made it to its final destination. Now, I'm not saying all these things to scare you or put pressure on you if you want to do mail-in or if you should or shouldn't. I just want you to know ahead of time and be prepared. Do not wait until the last minute. Every state is handling this different. I mean, they did before, but especially during a pandemic. So be prepared. I want you to be informed and feel comfortable with your options. I can't tell you what every state's going to do, so it's going to take some research of your own. But hopefully you'll have enough of a grasp on things that you can make the best decision that suits your situation. Do not let anyone scare you out of voting in a year that matters so much to so many people. And vote for the person that you believe in. It might not be one of the 2 old white guys, and that's totally fine. Follow your heart and make the call. Research is important, and luckily there are websites that can make things a lot easier for you. I will link one down in the description below where you can answer a few questions and see which candidate suits you best, because you might be surprised. Just please vote. It matters and you matter. Thanks for watching.